So term, the reason we can sell a term policy is typically when the terms usually end by age 70 and you can't renew the term anymore, but you can convert the policy. So the reason that they're attractive to buyers is you can take the term policy and you can get what's called a conversion illustration, and you can forecast what the premium payments will be once you take the policy from a term and now make it a universal life or a whole life, to your point. So you can calculate what those premiums will be going forward. You'll know exactly what you're paying. Term is what I own.
Okay.
When you're in the life insurance business, you tend to buy what makes the most sense, and I just pay pure cost of insurance for the death benefit. If I were to die, that's what I get.
Okay.
And any other monies I would be overpaying the premium. I invest myself into things I want to invest in, not what the life insurance company wants me to invest.
Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. I love the variety in guests. We just had a show that was very much about mindset and all kinds of interesting, sort of emotional, psychological aspects of money. And today we're going to have a great guest talking about something that I bet you haven't heard of, that is a lot more concrete and something that is financial information that really everybody should have and probably very few people do. So I'm going to bring in our guest today, who is with us from Florida, and I'm so grateful that he is going to be on the show today. I love it when people bring something to the show that everybody should know, but nobody does know. And that's always, I think, important to, really building your financial education. So Rob Haney has been a major influence on the evolution of the life settlement industry during his almost 31-year career of proactive involvement. Not only has he been directly involved in negotiating and settling several thousand contracts, he also presently serves on the board of directors of the Life Insurance Settlement Association and is a charter member of the association's PPC committee, which is charged with the regulatory and legislative activities of the industry. Additionally, he served on both the customer advisory board of ITM 21st Services and the advisory board of the Insurance Studies Institute. He currently serves on the Forbes Councils as well as the board of the Retirement Genius and Innsmark's Advanced Consulting Group. I might have gotten that first word a little bit wrong. He was named one of the top 10 most influential people in the life settlement industry worldwide. Mr. Haney, an alumnus of Florida State University, currently holds a life agent license with Viatical Settlement Broker Appointment for LIS and has spoken at almost every life settlement industry meeting or conference, published articles on the subject, and has given many educational webinars as well. Rob, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. We talked briefly before before today, and I was pretty fascinated because, again, you start thinking you've heard a lot of things and then somebody comes in and starts talking about something that you should know, but you don't. So, yeah, tell us, give us a little intro into, your life in this industry.
Sure. So, as you mentioned in my introduction, I'm in the life settlement industry and life settlement business. And what that is we help people sell an unwanted, unneeded, or in many cases, unaffordable life insurance policy for a sum greater than they can get from the carrier themselves, such as their cash surrender value. So you think about a life insurance policy, you think about all the reasons people buy life insurance. And generally speaking, the majority of people buy it for protection in case something were to happen to them, so that the other member of the family can stave off the hardship and keep going. And so they continue to pay the mortgage to continue to save for children's college, et cetera. So you're typically 35 to 40 to 50 years old when you do that. Then what happens is you become 75 and you say to yourself, I don't want this life insurance policy anymore. It's more expensive than it used to be. I don't really have all those needs I had before. I want out. So people then will either lapse the policy in the case of a term policy, or they'll surrender it for the cash surrender value in the case of a permanent policy, such as a universal life or whole life. So what we do is we encourage them, whether they come directly to us or they come through one of their trusted financial advisors, to represent them in the sale and go out to a marketplace that exists where there are investors who buy this asset class at a discount based upon the current life expectancy of the seller. And he or she gets money, and we've backed into this through our industry association survey, roughly 6.5 times greater than cash surrender value. So to give that in perspective, if you were to have a $2 million life insurance policy with $100,000 in cash surrender value, a typical life settlement will yield you $650,000. So we ask ourselves, which would you rather have, $100,000 or $650,000? And I think the answer is pretty self-explanatory. But the problem is, as you pointed out, not too many people know that this exists. So I like to take all the blame for that we've done a terrible job of marketing in 31 years. But the goal is to let people know that you own your life insurance policy like you own your house. Homeownership would not be as popular if you couldn't sell your house to somebody else if you needed the cash or you wanted to downsize. Well, the same thing with your life insurance policy. So what's happening now in the country is everything's getting more expensive, whether it's inflation or just the way of the world. Things cost a lot of money, and long-term care is something I'm sure you've touched on one of your episodes prior, is getting increasingly more expensive.
Right.
This is a way to help supplement that long-term care plan if you don't have a long-term care plan that you bought at the right time or just simply can't afford it. So you can really self-fund your long-term care, helps you move into an assisted living facility or to age in place and make home improvements to make that a reality. So that's really what a life settlement is. I hope that's a good enough brief.
Yeah, and I think that market that exists where you can sell this is I didn't know about it, so I'm going to guess a lot of people don't. And who are the buyers? Who are?
So think of institutional capital. So there are accredited investors to be on one side, to individual investors that buy policies, or people that invest into funds that buy a myriad of life insurance policies and operates in either a closed or open-end structure. Or more recently, why the marketplace has expanded is pension funds have come in. Oh. They like this because the time horizon for liquidity for them is so far off in the future that they can buy, I would call, longer life expectancy, where others really can't. They want to return sooner rather than later. So give you an idea. So I've been 31 years, sounds like a long time, and my wife reminds me that it is. But at the end of the day, this industry really hasn't started yet, and I'll explain why. Every year, approximately $112 billion of life insurance in the United States of America will either be lapsed or will be surrendered for people over the age of 65. On top of that, our industry as a whole buys about $5 billion. That's on top of that. So when you think about that, we're buying about 3.6% of the potential that's out there. So the rest of the world, I'm not saying that all those $112 billion of candidates would qualify, but I can assume that it's greater than 20 billion or 30 billion. So there's those folks that are out there that can take that money and literally use it for whatever they want, whether it's to take a vacation they never could afford in their life, or to buy a car they've always wanted, or to do something more practical, such as pay off a loan or help a grandson or granddaughter go to college. So those are all things you can do for life insurance. And I tell people you're kind of putting life back into life insurance. Life insurance is a weird name in the sense that you really have to die for your loved ones to enjoy it. This is an opportunity for you to do that while you're alive.
So let me see if I can understand a little better. So you have, for example, we've always had term policies. Mm-hmm. So, and everybody sort of understands that with a whole life or, whatever the term is right now, there is this cash value associated with that. But with term insurance, you sort of feel like you're just paying the premiums and maybe you'll use it, maybe not. And, you don't think of it in terms of a sellable asset in any way. And, well, that's one question. Is there a distinction? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So the reason we can sell a term policy is typically when the terms usually end by age 70 and you can't renew the term anymore, but you can convert the policy. So the reason that they're attractive to buyers is you can take the term policy and you can get what's called a conversion illustration, and you can forecast what the premium payments will be once you take the policy from a term and now make it a universal life or a whole life, to your point. So you can calculate what those premiums will be going forward. You'll know exactly what you're paying. Term is what I own.
Okay.
When you're in the life insurance business, you tend to buy what makes the most sense, and I just pay pure cost of insurance for the death benefit. If I were to die, that's what I get.
Okay.
And any other monies I would be overpaying the premium. I invest myself into things I want to invest in, not what the life insurance company wants me to invest in.
Can I just tell you how much I love that answer? Because I do think it's confusing. And when you're talking to somebody selling it, you don't really realize, you're not in control anymore. And if you want to maintain control, you can just invest that money yourself.
Sure. There was I can't remember the guy's name, maybe Arthur Anderson. That wasn't Arthur Anderson. A.L. Williams, who said, buy term, invest the rest. That was his philosophy. Okay. So it doesn't mean that I'm right. Don't assume that you shouldn't buy universal life, because there's a reason for everything. But the life insurance policies, there's a lot of tricks going on inside those where you just don't really know. Like they always say, like the premiums will be X. Well, if A, B, and C happen, they're not X. They're more. They never go down. They never call you up next year and go, hey, remember I said it was going to be $6,000 a year, now it's $5,000. That never happens.
Right.
But some years you're fortunate where they do remain the same, and certainly with term, it absolutely always does.
Right.
But as you get older, so they convert the policy. The unique thing about that opportunity is the not only are they buying the policy, but when the policy is converted, in many cases, that's a new policy. So the insurance agent, whoever that is, participates in that conversion in terms of a commission.
Right.
So it's another commissionable event inside of a life settlement. So that's the unique reason why they've gained a lot of popularity of late. Other reason is because now the people that are 70 years old and around that age can sell a life insurance policy in our marketplace, whereas 10 years ago they couldn't because the life expectancies hadn't gone out as far as they go out now. They go out now to almost 240 months or 20 years. So that's the pension fund I mentioned, right? They're the ones that buy those longer life expectancies. And they don't have to pay a lot of money for them because they know the person's going to live and the client's really going to throw the policy away and take nothing. So any money's better than none. The unique investment opportunity for them, which is why this is attractive, is unfortunately, if you were to buy someone with a 20, 25-year life expectancy, let's just say, and they went out and discovered pickleball over the Christmas holiday and hadn't really done anything athletic in 2.5 years and die of a heart attack on the pickleball court, that was a good investment by whoever bought that life insurance policy with the long life expectancy. That happens. That's out there. Yeah. Inversely, there's the people that you look at and go, oh, that guy never takes care of himself. He drinks every day. He smokes. He doesn't exercise. He's going to die in 5 years. And of course, he'll live 35 years.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works. So it evens itself out. That's why you should buy a lot of these life insurance policies, and the investors do, because you will make mistakes. People will outlive their life expectancy. And certainly some people, unfortunately, will die before their life expectancy.
Yeah, very interesting. So talk to me about this age 70, because we just termed out of some policies and went, out there looking to buy something, and it was definitely way more expensive and more difficult. And it seemed like, well, you still had options though. So is that an actual cutoff or not?
No.
Okay.
We have sold. You can be you can have a terminal illness. This business was started in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s when I get into it, and mainly we're dealing with people with a terminal illness, some chronic illnesses, and most of them were HIV and AIDS. Mm-hmm. So that's where it started. So you can be 36 and sell your life insurance policy.
Right.
A, you should have a life insurance policy, and B, if you have a terminal illness, you're going to qualify because your life expectancy is going to be short. We will always tell the client that if they have a very short life expectancy, 24 months or less, that they should keep the life insurance policy because they're going to take a discount regardless of how good the offer that we get them is. It's never going to be 100% of the death benefit. So hopefully we'll look to see if they have an accelerated death benefit rider in their life insurance policy. Some people do, and they can take advantage of that. If they don't, and they can manage to keep making the premium payments, 100% of a $5 million death benefit is better than $3 million. Mm-hmm. But in some cases, not all, but in some, they don't have the money to keep the premiums going.
I see.
And that's the reason what triggers the sale, at least to look for it.
Okay, now, I was trying to figure that out because it's counterintuitive to me. You're sick and you're going to die soon, and you should sell your life insurance. But now I understand.
Well, I'll give you an example. People sell a life insurance policy for they take the money and they use it for treatments that aren't covered in their insurance.
Yeah.
So they may think that I had a client that went in the late 90s to Europe for brain cancer. And he was dead. I mean, they told everybody, the person who bought the policy, he's not going to live long. Multiple people all agree with that. He sold the policy for a lot of money, and he went to Europe and came back to the UCLA Medical Center where he was a patient and showed the results to his doctors who told him he had a death sentence, and there was no cancer. It's gone.
Wow.
Used the money. So terrible investment for the group that bought the policy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's your right and privilege. You can do with the money whatever you want. Now, I'm not going to say that it works for everybody, but he was convinced it was. He was a lawyer. He did a lot of research. He had a lot of money anyway. This just helped him.
Yeah.
Go over there and take care of it, and that's what can happen. So, life expectancy is a weird thing to worry about or think about, but everyone has their own opinion, and I'm not saying that everyone's right. But back to your point about being young, there is no age cutoff. Now, if you're a senior citizen, we tell people we've sold people's policies that are in their 60s and 65 because they may not have any health impairments at all, but their premiums are so inexpensive compared to the death benefit that somebody will give them a little bit of money and take the policy off their hands. So all those numbers I talked about, that $112 billion, people just let their policies go every year.
Right.
Like it's nothing. They just, now there may be a reason for that. They just don't know. Unfortunately, they don't know that I exist because, again, we've done a terrible job marketing this. But that's why I like to come on shows with followings that you have, because there's a whole nother audience out there that may understand and may be sitting there with their, it doesn't have to be their policy. It could be their mom and dad's policy. They're the ones in charge of the finance. They're deciding where mom and dad, are they going to sell the house? Are they going to put them into a senior living community, et cetera? So these are all things to realize that another asset that you could be getting money out of is a life insurance policy. And many people just don't know that you can.
Well, I sure didn't. And I know. So here, I want to know how I screwed up, because I had, let's just use my husband's policy, termed out. Renewing with the same company was like a joke. I mean, it went from like $2,000 a year, to like $40,000 a year. It was interesting. So we let it go, and then we, searched for quite a while for a new policy that would take him at this age, 65. So that was doable. So what could I have done anything else? Could I have sold that?
could have looked at it. I don't know. 65 is young, but if he depends on the type of policy that it is. And if there's, I mean, I tell everyone, let's go get a decline before we just assume we know the answer.
Right.
So I have to tell, now, if you're 52 and you just won the Los Angeles Marathon, no, you're not going to be able to sell your policy.
Okay.
But if you're 65, there's a chance. But the fact that he can go get more insurance means he probably didn't have a lot wrong with him.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of insurance he got.
Right.
But there is underwriting. They're going to determine if you're going to impairment, you're going to get rated. You either can be standard, preferred, select, and then table D, table, all these different reasons. It's all just an excuse to charge you more money.
Right. So this policy is a 10-year policy. In 10 years, would I call you and say,
yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, you should call because it's you rather than have peace of mind, go, look, I called Rob and Rob says no one's going to give me any money for my policy, so at least you know that. You don't want to find out that you didn't call me and then you would have found out, it was really worth 3 times what you thought it would be worth if you were to sell it. So we call it a free non-binding appraisal. You get every other large ticket item in your life appraised all the time. Your home appraised, that someone charges you for that. If you have jewelry, estate jewelry, art, appraisals, antique cars, boats, always getting appraised. Why not your life insurance? In many cases, it's your second, and in some cases, your largest asset that you own. Mm-hmm. So get someone to give you a professional opinion, what it's worth, whether you sell it or not. Other things that I didn't touch on is you can, if you have a large policy and you realize you don't want that large policy anymore, but you need some insurance. So you can split the policy into 2. You can break it into 2 policies, sell one, use some of that money to offset the cost of the other one to keep it. Another thing that we've done in our industry, which is, I think, tremendous, which is called a retained death benefit. This is a pretty simple concept, but I'll try and make it even simpler. If you own a $1 million life insurance policy, for example, and you want life insurance, but you don't want to pay for it, which is what everybody wants.
Right.
You say, how much life insurance do you need? And they might say, I need $500,000. Well, we come back and we say, no one's going to give you $500,000, but I'll tell you what they'll do. They'll give you $125,000 paid up life insurance policy and $10,000 in cash to consummate this deal. And what that does is that gives you your cash, little $10,000, and now you have on the same policy you're selling, recorded at the insurance carrier, your named beneficiary for $125,000. So when you pass away, that money would go to whoever you deemed your beneficiary. So there is still life insurance, except you're not paying for it anymore. You're paying for it in the sense that you sold your policy to somebody else, but you still get life insurance. That's a great thing to do. Now, the other thing people say, and I'm going to share this with your audience because people always think in the back of their head, well, what if the company you sold it to decides they don't want to make the premium payments anymore? Well, in the contract, it says if that were the case, they would give you back your life insurance policy, not the 125, the whole thing. Now, time will have gone by. You'll have made no premium payments for the 125 you still have. Now you're back in full and complete control of the $1 million life insurance policy, which you can bring to the settlement market again. So that's never happened. But if it did, I'd be rooting for it, honestly, as a seller. But this is something to think about.
Very interesting. Okay, so let me bring another little scenario to you. So I took care of my parents for a couple of years, and my dad had several sort of small whole life policies. They were pretty little, and then he had another one that he had I think he had converted his retirement. He was a professor at University of Texas, and I think converted that into some kind of retirement annuity thing.
Sure.
And that was paying him monthly some amount, and then there was cash value at the end. That was so. Is there anything there that I should have done that I didn't do?
Well, so the first thing that he converted to the annuity sounds to me like a solid plan. I mean, that's a great thing because you want to go from paying money to an insurance company to receiving money.
Okay.
With income. And that's what, people either take the income or they just continue to build the annuity for larger payments when they can take them later. As the smaller policies, those are things that what did you do with those, the smaller policies?
He had some loans against them, and I just got whatever the remaining value was from the company.
Probably, and how old was he at the time?
He was 94.
Oh. I mean,
yeah, but he was continuing to pay on these. And now that I think about it, there was a premium payment that I was making on his behalf every month. It's small, but yeah.
I mean, those are ones who go, when you're 94, though, you're kind of like, the crazy thing about being 90s, what we've learned in our business, at least as it applies to this business, is when you get to be 90, especially a typical life settler, you have a greater chance living to 100 than you do to die before age 100.
Interesting.
The odds are actually that you'll live, it's not substantially larger, but it's larger than you'd think. It's about like 55%. Right.
That makes me a little more excited about turning 90.
To 90. I mean, I tell a joke. I just turned 60, so that's like a milestone for me. But when we were kids, I grew up in southern New Jersey, and I don't know if you remember this where you grew up, but when I grew up, they had this truck that would drive around and spray for mosquitoes, and I can assure you that nothing that came out of that truck was good for you. Yeah. But our whole neighborhood would ride bikes behind it till our mothers would find us and scream and pull us out. And here's the thing, I'm going to knock on wood. Of the people in my group, it's about 25 of us. We're all still alive.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know what that says.
I remember those. I grew up in Boston, and we had those mosquito trucks.
They're crazy. They're full of DEET and DDT, all the things you're not supposed to ever get within like 200 miles of. And we're riding around on back of bikes. Can't even see each other. It's just foggy. But some people just live a long time, and that's what these medical records in our business, they try and figure out what you do. I mean, there's no record that you rode your bike behind a mosquito truck, but things that you would think, oh, that's not good for you. Some people it has no effect on. Then there's others that live, the healthiest life imaginable, and they die of cancer, and they didn't eat a piece of meat since they were sophomores in high school. Yeah. So you just never know.
Well, so, how would you advise people who are doing their estate planning, for example? I mean, because this is interesting to me looking back at, how little I knew about the insurance that my parents had. So what do you need to know if you're going to be taking care of people?
Great question. Because, we recommend to everybody, because you just can't say, oh, we're in the life settlement business, go find me a life settlement. It just doesn't work that way. So we teach people what to look for. And the best way, and we've seen the most success with the people that we've done business with over the years, is to have some type of an annual review, which most do anyway, but include life insurance as part of that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you find out that you don't have enough life insurance, that you have all these assets unprotected, and it might be an opportunity for you to sell additional life insurance. So this starts at the second they become your client, whether they're 35 or 65. And then to understand, is it performing as well as you did? You mentioned your husband's policy. It was worth $2,000 and it's worth, some ridiculous number. That's all part of the review. The review is going to teach you, Mr. Simpson, in 2 years, your policy is going to renew. And based upon this illustration I pulled, it's going to be a lot more expensive than even we anticipated. Let's discuss what the game plan is. And given there's certain situations where they might come to me and other situations where they might decide to do something else and go the annuity route that you mentioned with your dad. So there's a million things, but you've got to know what you're looking for. So when a client has a policy that they don't want and you've determined they definitely don't need, or in worst example can't afford, that becomes a life settlement candidate. Even if our initial response is it doesn't work, you want to check that box that you've looked there.
Yeah, interesting. It's actually a lot more complex than I think brokers make you think. Like, there's more to it. I don't know why that is. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of insurance.
You mean a
brokers.
life insurance policy?
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard any of this from any broker that we've had.
So I have a guy, one of the first meetings I ever went to of life insurance with a guy, he was from Louisiana, since retired. He had one of those stamps that you have on your desk. You press down, it makes the noise, and it does the ink. And it would say on every illustration that he ever gave to a client, any policy he ever sold them, the biggest letters you could see in red ink that said guaranteed, right? Huh. And underneath it, it said, that the numbers on this page will never, ever, 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 ever remotely come close to this performance under any circumstances for any time period, and just basically take all of that away, showing you that an insurance projection in 2024 about what the insurance premiums are going to be on a policy that's a complex life insurance policy, universal life, whole life, it's not possible. It's never going to be the number. It might be close. And he said, look, sometimes it's close, but there's other products out there that have exploded over time. There was a long time ago, there was a life insurance policy that they would claim, they call it disappearing or vanishing premium. This is in the early 2000s.
Wow.
And that's the way they sold it. They'd say, oh, Michelle, you could just buy this policy and you'll pay $1,700 a quarter. And after 9 years and 4 months, that look at this piece of paper shows that you've put so much premium into the policy that the cash value is just going to take over and pay the premiums for the rest of your existence. Mm-hmm. And they weren't lying, except that the premium didn't disappear. The number on the paper disappeared. It became a lot more expensive.
Okay.
And those policies went blood. So they had to send, they were no longer allowed to call it disappearing or vanishing premium. The state regulators came in and said, you can't say that. Because when you think about that as a consumer, if someone tells me my premiums are going to disappear or vanish, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually remember that story and felt sort of like I was making a huge mistake not buying those policies because eventually, like you say, it was going to pay its own premiums. But
well, the variable universal life did the same thing. They're like, oh yeah, you're going to overfund the policy, and that's going to then eventually you'll never make another premium payment again. Yeah, unless the market goes down, and guess what? The market always seems to go down when you buy those policies. So everything you've invested, right? You put that cash value just went down. You did nothing about it. It happened because it happened, and those policies exploded. So we've been around for everything. There's never a good time to be in our market or a bad time. There's always a set of circumstances that affect certain people differently.
yeah,
So we think if you got any questions and you don't know, the best way forward is to find out. So if you're working with, your life insurance agent, your CPA, your estate planner, your wealth planner, whomever it is, discuss this with them, because chances are 7 out of 10 of them have never going to heard of it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. If I went to, any of my financial advisors and I said, talk to me about life insurance settlement, would they just look at me like, I don't know what you're talking about? Well,
some might have an idea. Like it's enough to see. So there's television ads that run on TV now. Okay. But unless you know the word life settlement, it doesn't mean anything to you. You're just like, that's just another commercial. They could be selling bug spray. You don't know. But now that you've had this podcast with me and you now have the word life settlement in your head, you'll notice that commercial. You may hear it on Sirius Satellite on the drive home. If you listen to any of the financial channels or any of the cable news channels on Sirius, they're playing all the time.
Yeah.
But it's tough to get that audience in 30 seconds, right? How do you say to somebody, hey, if you have a life insurance policy you don't need one or can afford, call us. They don't know why you're calling us. You need time for them to understand. We have built into the laws. We took this upon ourselves through the association. We've given people rescission period, right? So if they sell their policy and for whatever reason it doesn't sit well with them, there's a 15-day right of rescission that they can give the policy back.
Okay.
Right? That's there for their protection. We've had 3 rescissions in my life. We've done close to 30,000 of these transactions, give or take a few thousand. 3 have rescinded, and unfortunately, all 3 of them were someone died in the middle of the rescission period.
Wow.
So, went on the transaction, all the 100% of the policy went back to the insured. Yeah, it could happen anytime. So it's simple. Like I said, again, free non-binding appraisal, no obligation to take an offer. You could say, I want $100,000 offer and we get you $10 million. You don't have to take it. It's your call. We just want you to know that your life insurance policy is an asset, just like your home, and you can sell it to anybody you want for any amount of money you want.
So you do the selling. I mean, I don't go to this
I'm
market.
A broker.
Yeah.
I'm a broker. So I'm not a buyer. So I don't want to be that scenario where I am representing you and also buying it for me. That's like the real estate dual agency where you have to grow an additional head out of your shoulder blades to be working for both the seller and the buyer. Can't happen.
Okay.
So we stay on this side of it. Plenty of stuff for us to do on this side. We don't have an act anticipating the investment at all.
Okay.
Our goal is to just create an auction, if you will, and drive the price up as high as we can. We're not forcing anybody to pay more than they want to, just what the market will bear.
Okay. And then there's some sort of commission in that brokerage deal? Yeah.
Commissions, and here's another shocker. In our business, commissions are disclosed.
Oh.
The client knows what we're making.
Okay.
So if I'm working with a financial planner and the commissions just make it up, it's $50,000 and the client's getting $250,000, the client sees $250 and he sees $50,000 commission. So he knows. And if he decides he thinks that's not enough and wants to give us 100, that's also never happened. He can, but if he thinks 50 is too much and wants us to make only 40, then that's negotiable as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you actually have that discussion.
Oh yeah, they have to know we're making money. This is a for-profit business, but sometimes I feel like a 501c3. But no, it's there. See, when you buy life insurance, when you buy your life insurance policy from your life insurance agent, he or she's working for John Hancock.
Yeah.
So you don't know how much they're making.
Right.
People have no idea that they're making, the better agents are making 140% of the first year premium.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right out of the gate. The insurance company doesn't even make money till like in year 2.
And there's no negotiating that.
No. And when you see the ads on TV like policy quote or whatever it is, and you think you're going directly to the insurance company, you're not. There's an insurance agent that's being paid.
Okay.
Part of that program. So that's just the way it works, because life insurance is very hard to sell. And if you didn't incentivize someone to do it, you'd have a very tough time selling it. But it's very meaningful. I think life insurance is a great bargain in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
because if
I would
something,
agree.
God forbid, were to happen to you, there's thousands and thousands of stories where it's made a huge difference in that family's life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But people don't understand it, and it's unaffordable for most people. That's why you see the ads on TV. The guy says $9.95, $9.95, $9.95. That's really what essentially is called a burial insurance.
Okay.
It's really just there for mortgage protection, so to speak, but more or less for if something would, God forbid, were to happen to you, there's at least enough money for your family to be afford a funeral, a normal funeral.
Right.
And funerals, if you haven't paid attention to, have gotten a lot more expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
For sure. Okay. Wow. Very interesting. And any comments? Because I do have people who. I recently had a friend who had long-term care that she bought fairly recently at a relatively older age because she panicked a little seeing people like me who were losing their parents and how much everything was costing, and so she raced out and got her own policy. Premiums went up, and she really doesn't feel like she can keep paying it. And then,
life insurance policy or
this
long-term
is long-term
policy?
care, but then she started telling me about long-term care, life insurance, hybrid policies, and I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to share about those.
Well, I know that they're out there and they're new. The only thing would warn people against is when these long-term care policies go out, similar to health insurance, you want to know what it doesn't cover is almost like the first question you want to ask.
I know.
It's always tell you what it covers, right? So it covers this and it covers that, but they never tell you what it doesn't cover. And trust me, the stuff that it doesn't cover is the stuff that's the most expensive. Like a lot of times the transition to long-term care needs, and then they go into like memory care, and only allots for certain dollar amount for that versus what it actually costs. So you really can't get it. So just make sure you understand what is covered and get it in writing.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. I live in Fort Lauderdale, and you're seeing my mother just relocated from Sarasota. My father passed 3.5 years ago. And now she lives in an adult community here that transitions you to everything imaginable in there. But the costs of that every year are close to like 8% increase every year.
Right.
Goes up. So it's a slippery slope. I mean, I get in the fight of we're the only civil. country in the world that doesn't have health care for its residents.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that if you were to build that into the taxes, not to get into political scope, but to build that into our taxes, and if we paid more for taxes just to have the ability to go into the healthcare like you can in Canada
Yep.
and all the European countries that everyone seems to want to vacation in,
Yeah.
that's the only way out, unfortunately.
Yeah. I agree
Because
with you.
it's
Totally.
just crazy how expensive these. When I say memory care, that is like they built one going over the bridge over the intercoastal in Fort Lauderdale. And I said, out of curiosity, I said, how much does it cost to go in there? Well, it was a number that I can't even remember what it was. I tried to get it out of my mind. It was like checking into the Mandarin Oriental today and staying there for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
including eating all your meals from room service. I mean, that's what it's.
No,
might as
it's.
well.
I mean, my parents ended up in one and took my, disabled sister with them because she'd always lived with them. So there was one room for my parents and one room for her. My parents since passed, but she's still there, and because she's comfortable there, I hate to move her, but the reality is the expense is, and I totally agree with you. You feel one way about our healthcare system. I probably would have disagreed with you before I took care of my parents and saw what the reality is for medical expenses, caregiving expenses, assisted living, memory care. All of that it's mind-boggling. And you're right.
My father, to your point, they moved into a community similar to the one my mother's in now. The reason she's here now, she left that one. They killed my dad. There's another way to describe it. They literally killed him. I mean, there was not even like a discussion about how did they.
Oh.
They just did. We got an argument. It's kind of a weird way to veer, but we might as well do it because it's interesting radio. My father was dehydrated that I could clearly see.
Oh.
And I came in and I said, I'm going to give him watermelon. He wasn't eating anything. And I gave him watermelon and he ate it. And I came back to my mother and I said, you can't believe it. He ate a lot. And the next day I go in and the head nurse, if you will, said that I can't give him any more watermelon because I'll drown him.
Oh, geez.
And I said, what is that even? What are you talking about? Drown him? I'm not having him dive into the bowl of watermelon. I'm feeding him watermelon. So then I gave the terms of endearment speech, the Shirley MacLaine speech, where I yelled at the top of my lung to get an IV into him.
Yeah. Wow.
And they did. And then as I was driving to work, they come back half an hour later, they took the IV out and said that you'll drown him. Meanwhile, they're continuing the food service to him. So they're bringing him the food that comes in the natural course of business. But the things I was doing were out. So I one-upped them. I called 911 and had him taken to Broward General, where they gave him a gigantic IV bag. And in less than an hour, it was gone. And my father still couldn't urinate.
Oh,
4 days later, he was dead.
wow. I'm
So
sorry.
that's where we're at. That's an expensive place that they were in that had the best care, A-rated care center.
Yeah.
When I was at a speech in my business with a guy talking about what should you do for long-term care and how expensive it is, to your earlier question. And he said, well, if you don't have enough money for long-term care in this state, this is Florida.
Right.
My suggestion is to take a unloaded gun into a 7-Eleven and get arrested for robbery, because then you're going to go to jail. And in jail, because it's privatized, they're going to keep you alive.
Jeez.
You're going to get 3 squares, you're going to get health care, you're going to get the gym, you're going to get library, etc.
Oh, my Lord.
And because if you go into a state-run assisted living facility, that's like going to prison, the worst prison you can imagine. I mean, there's no incentive to keep you alive. Abuse and all that stuff takes place. We hear those horror stories. That's our country. So I like what I do because I take an asset that you buy for one reason and give you an opportunity to use it for another. And to kind of like telling people that there's hidden money. We still feel there's an asset that's hidden from view, and it's hidden from view on purpose. They make me tell you, the State Department of Insurance, they make me tell you that you can do all these different things when you sign the contract to sell your policy. Like you could take a loan, you could do this, you could do that. But when you go to take a loan or surrender your policy or lapse it, they never tell you could do a settlement. But we're both regulated by the same entity. So we're not there yet, but that's my goal in the next 2 years. So and I'll leave you with this to give you some good news as relates to this. We have worked with Congress, and unfortunately COVID got in the way last time. We're digging it up again, which is to create a senior health planning account. And what that says is if you settle your life insurance policy and you park all that money from the proceeds of that sale into the senior health planning account, and as long as you use that money for healthcare related expenditures, which by the way, that is like the old yellow pages of Manhattan, all the things that are qualified for that, you won't pay any taxes.
Wow.
So you're stimulating the economy, you're helping seniors, and if we do it right, we'll alert the life insurance companies, and that could be another reason the people buy the policy when they're 35 or 40, is when you get older, you can sell it, just like the reason you buy a house to somebody else and then take that money and use that for your own long-term care. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, the other thing I'll share with that, bipartisan support. We didn't have one person on either side of the aisle against it.
Boy, that's really interesting. So in a way, it's like an HSA account only for seniors.
Exactly. So it has to be segregated because you can't have them both overlap. So this is only if you sell your life insurance policy. And I'm sure there's other vehicles we can stick in there. So if you sell your policy, it's a senior health planning account, and they've scored it, and it creates money. So it's paid for. It's not something that costs the government any amount of money. And I think the golden cookie, if you will, is the life insurance companies should see that this could be a reason why they sell more life insurance. They created a accelerated death benefit option in your life insurance policies that you can opt for when you buy policies today. That is a direct result of our marketplace.
Interesting.
That came about because of HIV and AIDS. People were selling their policies, and to go full circle. Those people that sold those life insurance policies back when they were taking the drugs, the medicines that were non-FDA approved, lived long enough to be around for the cocktail. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
So we, in essence, saved their life.
Yeah.
They're alive today. They would not have been alive, another 2 or 3 months. It had been over, and then it would have been the next set of people.
Wow.
So I like what I do I'll try and make you laugh here at the end. But when I told my wife and mother in '93 that I was quitting my a real estate job that I was doing pretty well in, but as a young kid, you go into the vehicle settlement market, they literally, I think we're going to have like an intervention. They said, "There's no way you're doing that." I said, "I'm 100% doing it."
Wow.
And I never look back. It's fun. It's fun to do it because it's kind of like when you do get people and you're successful, it makes you smile. You feel good about yourself. We don't have a single, as an industry, consumer complaint in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Now, naturally being because why would anybody complain about getting more money? So.
This is fantastic. And I love the passion. I mean, I know, we got a little depressing in some ways with the reality of things. But it really showed the mission and the vision that you have for this and why you're doing it. And I think when people are driven by their why, it's they're really good at what they do, and they bring everything they got to the business. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Well, Rob,
you're a very good person to talk to, so I can see where your show's so successful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, let's see how people can get a hold of you. Is it your website mostly?
It's Rob at lisettlements.com, L-I and then the word settlements, plural.com. And my cell phone, which I give out, you can call me 24 hours a day, is 954-599-4433.
That's fantastic. And I'll put that in the show notes. And so if people have heard this, maybe they still don't totally understand, can they give you a call and learn more
Absolutely.
about their... Okay.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, I hope you continue to be on, get this word out there. I think it's a little bit, it's disappointing when there's something that can really help people that is, just not being talked about. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're helping. Believe me, I can make 500 cold calls in a month versus do your one show, and your one show trumps that. So okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And really, really appreciate this conversation. And, we really kind of go all over the place on this show. And I kind of love the variety, actually, because you never know what you're going to get, but you're going to learn something, absolutely, no matter what. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And we sure love your participation in the show. And if you can share the show with your friends, I bet you know some people who would gain a lot by listening to this particular show. So please share it, rate and review the show so we can continue to bring great guests like Rob on. And we love bringing the information to you. Continue to expand your financial knowledge and work on, your own financial well-being, and spend some time, spending time with your money. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.